Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, going great. I have to tell you, the Michigan Washington game,
Yes.
I walked away. It was 7-7 in the third quarter. I walked away from a television and I was like, wow, this is a great game. That's exactly what we're expecting. Low scoring, close, could be anyone's game. And then I looked up like 10 minutes later and it was 24-7. And it was like, what the heck just happened? So I was excited to go back and watch this. And spoiler alert, I think Michigan might be 9-2 and have Big Ten title hopes and college football aspirations going into the Ohio State game, which would be finally, Tony, something on the line when Ohio State and Michigan meet.
It's about time. Let's make this game serious for once. Can we do that, please? Yes, Tom, you, upon rewatch, I think you got to witness Bryce Underwood's best game as a Wolverine and Damon Williams' worst game as a Washington Husky, because this was not his best effort by a long shot. Before we talk about Damon Williams, let's talk about Bryce Underwood, because he was 21 of 27, 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, 7 rushes, 25 yards, really accurate on the day, in control, had very few issues that I could find. He was comfortable. He was very accurate, whether it was dropping back or whether it was on the move or whether he had to sidestep and sidearm something. And Andrew Marsh, freshman wide receiver, stuck a paw out and saved him one time on a nice grab. But overall, if this is what Damon or Bryce Underwood is going to be every week, that's fantastic news for Michigan. Unfortunately, he's not proven that this is who he is every week. You never really know what you're going to get week to week. I think at home you have a better idea of what you're going to get. They'll be on the road at Michigan State this coming week, so I'm not necessarily sold on the Michigan State defense to make life terribly difficult for him. But
Really? Why?
This is a half-hour show. We don't have time to get into the Michigan State problems. But this is a very nice mid-season checkpoint for Bryce Underwood, where if this is your baseline right now, then there's some really good room for expectations, hope, and maybe the floor has been raised up as well.
This has the look of a young but very talented team. And they're very, very young. They've got a bunch of redshirt freshmen in the offensive line, especially now that Evan Link has gone down with an injury, and we'll get into that later. But you got a true freshman quarterback, you got a redshirt freshman at running back, you got a true freshman as your one of your leading receivers. And it looks like a young team. It looks like a team that is away from home, looks one way, and at home looks a very different way. And I don't know that I think that USC is really, 4 touchdowns better than Washington. I think USC is a team that plays pretty well at home and maybe not as well on the road. And Washington is certainly one of those teams. Washington at home last year was undefeated at home and winless on the road. Like Washington, Iowa's one of those teams. Like you have those teams where it's like they're one team at home and one team on the road. And that feels like what Michigan is this year. Michigan has lost both of its losses have come on the road. Neither was particularly close. But now the road game's coming up. There's not a tough road game. There's not really a tough game left, period. But Michigan State is not tough. They go to Northwestern, and that's at Wrigley Field. We were at a Wrigley Field game last year. That's going to be 95% Michigan fans. And they go to Maryland, who might be in the process of firing Mike Locksley at that point. Those are your road games, and then your extremely difficult home game is Purdue. So, Tony, point me to the game where Michigan's going to be challenged. Like this just feels like a team that was a very good performance from Michigan, especially as shorthanded as they were. And it was a very good performance from, that's the best game I've seen from Jordan Marshall. That's the best game I've seen from Bryce Underwood. That, Andrew Marsh continues to take another step. There's a lot to like there. But I don't know that we're really going to know anything more about Michigan than we do right now. Like right now, it feels like you said, the floor is raised. That's about as far as I feel comfortable going. The floor is higher than it was a couple months ago. I don't know that we're going to know anything else about Michigan between now and the Ohio State game.
I would agree with that. What we do know is they'll just continue to get older, get more experienced, incrementally, you assume, get better. And they were without Justice Haynes this week. We'll see what happens moving forward. Sharon Moore has been not exactly forthcoming with injuries, which a lot of head coaches aren't, but in terms of the injury report, it's not always accurate as well. So when he says this guy, he's practicing, he'll be back, you can't necessarily buy everything that he says. That the Evan Link injury, left tackle, Evan Link went down, essentially non-contact, and when that happens, you just assume it's a season-ending thing. And he said on Monday, "Oh, we may be getting him back close, earlier than we thought. So, we'll see. It's a week-to-week thing, and they've got some other week-to-week things going on right now that I just, how do you keep an idiot in suspense? The availability.
I don't know.
report.
Tell me, Tony, quick. Tell me.
The week to week, and so we'll see how it goes. But then, so we saw Evan Link go down, left tackle. In his place goes redshirt freshman Blake Frazier, who overall PFF gave him like the best pass grade of the day, I believe, in terms of the Michigan offensive lineman. Didn't give up a quarterback hurry, blah blah blah. Although I don't know what they're measuring that on. There are two plays that you saw the Washington defensive end. One of them just completely pushes him down and goes and gets after the quarterback. Another one, I think his first full series, he got slammed back into the quarterback as well. But other than that, I thought he was, pretty decent. But the power and the bull rushing got to him a little bit. It's going to be fascinating to see how that offensive line, which now has 3 redshirt freshmen on it, step up. But hey, 187 yards rushing that they put forth. And yeah, as you said, this is the best Jordan Marshall we've seen. 187 yards rushing on 40 carries, a long of 17. That's an offensive line of scrimmage domination.
Yeah, they just were kind of consistently winning the line of scrimmage. And you look at the overall yards per play, and it's a yard and a half per play advantage, which is substantial, but it's not, this is the most dominating performance you've ever seen in your life. But it was also a game where it was 7-7. Washington was actually, if you look at GameOnPaper.com, Washington's win probability was 53.2% right before Damon Williams threw his first interception. And then their win probability did not improve from there. In fact, it got substantially worse with each sequential interception. This was a game where Michigan was missing so many guys. I mean, we talked about the Evan Link injury, but no Justice Haynes, no Marlon Klein, no Hogan Hansen, no Rod Moore, no Brandon Hellman on the defensive side of the ball. They were missing. This is a Michigan passing offense that relies very heavily traditionally on its tight ends, and so they're missing their top 2 tight ends, and so it's just kind of like, okay, shrug emoji. Zach Marshall, 5 catches for 72 yards and a touchdown. Sure. Deacon Tanielli, I got to tell you, Tony, we follow this team pretty closely. I'd never heard of this guy, and then he's out there catching passes. I'm like, who the heck is this? Where did they pull him out of? Which Massachusetts boarding school did they pull him out of? And I haven't even looked. I don't want to know the answer. I just want to speculate. I want to make broad Massachusetts boarding school stereotypes. Tony, it's not out of the possibility. It's a Connecticut boarding school. He's got some Rosemary Hall vibes. I'm not going to lie.
Well, I was thinking maybe possibly New York somewhere, but they send people out of state, right? New Yorkers would send people out of state.
Yeah, no, you go to a Connecticut or a Massachusetts boarding school for sure. Yeah, so yeah. But yeah, this was by far the best game we've seen from Jordan Marshall. We talked last week about the fact that his stats were basically the same or a little better than Justice Haynes against USC, but he didn't. For some reason I watched Justice Haynes and I'm like, this is a better running back than Jordan Marshall. Jordan Marshall in this game without Justice Haynes there to, tint my vision, pushing the pile, showing quickness. He's breaking tackles, 25 carries, 133 yards and a touchdown. That was just, and it wasn't, like you said, it was not the Donovan Edwards. I ran for 100 yards on 20 carries and 19 of them I ran for 20 yards. And once I ran for 80. Like it wasn't that. It was just boom, ba boom, ba boom. Keep it, staying on schedule, moving the chains, and keeping Michigan in makeable second and third and downs.
Yeah, and I'm just quickly firing through his rush attempts right now. And he said he had 4 rushes for 1 yard, nothing for 0, nothing behind the line of scrimmage. And overall, looking at the box score earlier today, Michigan on first down, they averaged 6.8 yards per first down. Washington, we could talk about this later, averaged 6.9 yards on first down. So I don't know. Second down is where Washington goes to die, and third down as well. But Michigan was on schedule, stayed on schedule because they just kept getting forward with Jordan Marshall, and he was very effective and stepped up when his team needed him. And certainly he ate. The passing game, you want to get back to that. The tight ends, Zach Marshall, 5 for 72, Deacon Tanielli, 3 for 38. Last week, the tight ends had 1 catch. And we talked about how bizarre that was and how, boy, this is not normal. What's happening with this Michigan passing game? Boom, Sharon, obviously, and his staff listening to the show, watching the show, is like, oh, crap. We need to get the tight ends involved. I forgot about that. And they do, and they were effective. And we'll see if that continues to be part of the game. Like, when your quarterback just has his best game ever and the tight ends are heavily involved, maybe don't go away from that. Maybe continue to play into that. And Andrew Marsh, true freshman, continues to be interesting. 5 for 49, had a 22-yard touchdown on a screen, a little tunnel screen where he took it right up the field, and it was fantastic. Donovan McCauley, 2 for 21, nearly threw an interception. He is the former quarterback at Indiana. Tom, I'm going to already bold prediction, expect him to throw a pass against Ohio State as well. Threw a pass that he should not have thrown. Washington dropped the interception, so they got away with that one. But overall, for all of the boys, Samaj Morgan dropping a 4th and 1 or 4th and 2, right in his hands, and it was designed for him. So maybe that's Michigan's fault for designing a critical play for him. But he's gotten a lot of grief from Michigan fans, understandably, because of his plays. But he's receiving so much grief, and also from Ohio State fans. And I'm expecting him now. The tide has turned. Karma has turned. I'm expecting some sort of a significant play against Ohio State from Samaj Morgan this year.
Yeah, that he'll be the receiver where, Bryce Underwood has his 1 or 2 throws a game, and he really didn't have one in this one, but he generally has his 1 or 2 throws a game where he's going to throw it deep, and it doesn't matter who's there. And is it triple coverage? Too bad. We'll, someone in maize and blue down there somewhere. It will be Samaj Morgan who definitely pulls that one in for a long touchdown against Ohio State in the Jabril Peppers has never had an interception, Mole, 100%. Deacon Tanielli, Tony, before we move on, from exactly the opposite of a Massachusetts boarding school, rural Illinois, Oswego, Illinois, which is, how Cicero is outside of Chicago, and then Downers Grove is outside of Cicero, and Naperville is outside of Downers Grove, and Aurora is outside of Naperville. Oswego is outside of Aurora. So he's from Wayne and Garth country. So there you go. Wayne's World tight end for Michigan, which is, that's fine. That's exciting. We love to have our new characters on the show. And that last name was strongly suggestive of northeastern Italian. I apologize. He is deep dish Italian. So there we go. The Donovan McCauley pass, man. Everyone's getting a little too cute with these. Like USC had one of those. USC's loss to Notre Dame swung on, oh, hey, we're going to have a wide receiver throw a pass. And I know Donovan McCauley used to be a quarterback. Michigan loves to get cute with this stuff. And every once in a while it'll work. And it's like, well, this worked once, so we're going to do it 7 more times. And then it won't work and it won't work. And it's like, what you're doing is working okay. Don't, the decision-making on those is generally, well, certainly this is going to be wide open. So you get handed the ball or you get tossed the ball. I'm going to throw this downfield. And then, like you said, very, very easily could have thrown an interception. But, he did not throw an interception. Damon Williams throwing 3 interceptions. I want to give Michigan credit for this. And I want to make clear They played a good game. They
Mm.
won. They deserved to win the game. It was very impressive that they did what they did with all these guys that we listed earlier as being out.
But
Which of those Michigan interceptions was even remotely caused by something that a Michigan player did? Like that Joel Klatt was drawing it up. The first one, Cole Sullivan, is like running to go cover a different guy, and Damon Williams just hits him right in the hands. The second one, the Washington tight end runs the wrong direction. And the third one, the Michigan defensive back falls down, is lying on the ground, and Denzel Boston just has the ball go right through his arms and lands right. Like the guy's lying in the ground. He's like, oh, hey, a football. How about that? What are the odds? So, man, that is a game that Jed Fish is going to go insane watching that game film, because they were in perfectly fine position to potentially win the game. They weren't controlling the game or anything, but it was, like I said, 53% win percentage. Like that's anyone's game at that point. And then it was just, it was Stanley Jackson-esque in terms of interceptions in Michigan Stadium, where it was just like, man, you probably shouldn't throw it directly to them.
It was 7-7 with 2 minutes left in the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So like this was a real game all the way through, except for the turnovers. And yeah, those were, I knew something was going to, I suspected early on there were bad signs when one of Damon Williams' first passes, or maybe his like third or fourth pass, was should have been a pick six right in the hands of Jair Hill after a bad route or a bad, mix up, like right to Jair Hill. He would have gone 80 some yards or, 50 yards, whatever, dropped it. And it's like, well, they dodged that one because that should have been a pick six. But don't worry, Damon Williams had more in him. And yeah, none of those, again, kudos to two linebackers for catching the football, in Cole Sullivan and Jimmy Rolder. But about the only way Jimmy Rolder, and I shouldn't say this because Buckeye fans will be mad, but about the only way you can expect Jimmy Rolder to intercept a pass in coverage is if the throw is behind the receiver. And that's what this one was, because he's been attacked in the passing game over the last few weeks. USC went after him and kept, would go after him downfield. This one was just a little, a short route, east-west after about, a 7-yard stop route type of thing. And, the miscommunication led to the interception there. And then that last one, which Denzel Boston has in his hands, and it's like drops it off like Michigan players down there panhandling. He's like, oh, I don't need this. Here, you take this. I don't need this. God bless. And hands off as the Michigan players down there shaking his cup. So, yeah, this was Damon Williams' worst game, and he was, just want to bring up his line here, because, again, he completed 63% of his passes, 20 for 32, 209 yards, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and 5 rushes, a loss of 19 yards because of the sacks, a long carry of 6 yards. You saw at times they were caging him like Ohio State did, but then they also would release and go get him. Derek Moore, first time we've seen him in a couple of weeks in terms of making plays. Still haven't seen, much from TJ Guy. I think he had maybe a pressure or a tipped pass in there as well. But TJ Guy has gotten a lot quieter since Jayshon Barham has moved to the edge. Jayshon Barham, for that matter, was quiet. But again, when you're playing Damon Williams, don't be surprised if your defensive ends and your edge players are quiet, because you're just trying to keep him contained and let him throw and then deal with that. Now, my inaccuracy, my fallacy and thought process was that Michigan can let him, they want to let him throw, they're going to have coverage issues, because Michigan is not very good in coverage. The problem is Washington didn't take advantage of it as well as they could have. And, Michigan did not have Rod Moore. They did not have Brandon Hillman. So you had Mason Curtis out there as the free safety. He is a liability. He gave up the first big play, 48-yarder to Denzel Boston, which led to a missed field goal, if I recall. So even with these issues in the secondary, they only gave up 7 points.
Right. They're playing a bunch of young guys. And, if you take, I'm not really comparing Brandon Hillman and Rod Moore to Caleb Downs and Jalen McClain, but if you take the starting safeties off Ohio State's defense, they're probably going to give up more plays downfield. Like that's kind of a natural thing that's going to follow along with you lose you're missing both of your safeties in the game. But while the opportunities were there, Washington took advantage of some of them. They hit the 148-yarder to Denzel Boston downfield, which that was just very much a Damon Williams rolls out and just throws it as far as he can, and the wide receiver made the play. There were a couple defensive backs down there, but he just made a good play on the ball. That's something, I watch all of these games sort of with the idea like, well, this is going to apply to Ohio State. This is not going to apply to Ohio State. That's something that if those guys are still their safeties, that's something that could very much apply to the Ohio State game, because Julian Sayin is perfectly capable of running the Carnell Tate down there somewhere, Jeremiah Smith down there somewhere type play. And it worked once, and it should have worked the second time. Like I said, that third interception, Denzel Boston, there's two defensive backs there. Neither of them looked like they played the ball particularly well at all. One fell down, one kind of, I think, overran it, if I remember right. But Denzel Boston was clean, had it coming down, and just didn't catch it. It wasn't that someone made a great play on the ball. He just didn't catch it. So you're seeing inconsistency out of the Michigan secondary, which is going to happen when you're missing a bunch of guys. I know Ernest Hausman went down. He had a really nice play at one point on Damon Williams, had a really nice open field tackle, but then kind of got rolled up on. And I don't think he came back in. That was, I think, in the middle of the third quarter. I don't think he came back in, and I don't think I've seen an update on him either. But, this is a lot of guys on the Michigan team who are banged up. This is sort of, fortunately, a time on the schedule where you can be missing some of these guys and be okay. You can play with Jimmy Rolder and Cole Sullivan at linebacker and be perfectly fine against Michigan State. Michigan State is bad this year. So, and I know I can hear Michigan fans yelling, "You're just trying to jinx it." Everyone knows that's the stupidest rivalry in sport. Everyone knows there's going to be a fight this weekend. Everyone knows it's all going to be Michigan State's fault. Don't worry. We've seen the Paul Bunyan game before. We know. Michigan State will come down the field. They will have something crazy cooked up on the opening drive. They will score a touchdown. Everyone will go crazy. And then Michigan's going to win like 31-7. And probably not 31. They'll win 24-7 this week, 27-7, something like that. It'll be fine. Like this is a get healthy portion of the schedule for Michigan. And, you don't ever want to have injuries, but if you're going to have guys out, this is the time going, good win against Washington. You did what you needed to do to get the win against Washington. You took advantage of the mistakes that Washington made, that's what good teams do. But, now you have an opportunity to get healthy against some bad competition.
Yeah, and he had some other good plays in there, good tackles against a difficult couple of players to tackle, and Jonah Coleman at running back and Damon Williams at quarterback. And Ernest Hausman has not been a great tackler in his time at Michigan. So good to see him making some plays. TV did say he jogged off. Sharon Moore said he'll be fine. So there is that. Back to Mason Curtis at safety and Jaden Mangum at safety as well. Like those guys play regardless. Like when Rod Moore is healthy, the rare times he's healthy this year, or when Brandon Hillman's out there, they rotate guys all the time. So Mason Curtis was matched up in the slot against Denzel Boston, which is a terrible, terrible matchup for Michigan. And on the 48-yarder, like Denzel Boston's on the right side of the field, and Zeke Berry is on the left side defending the other guy. And so Berry ends up being the guy that is the second guy over to defend that deep shot. Berry just leaves his man because he sees where the play is going, basically like a free safety. And Mason Curtis has been beaten by 5 yards, and Boston was still able to bring it down. Later in the game, Damon Williams is scrambling to the right, and he ends up dumping it off to like Jonah Coleman. But if he looks up, he'll see one of his receivers breaking up the field past the corner, and Mason Curtis is also heading towards the line of scrimmage. So it would have been an easy touchdown if he would have just looked at that. And he had plenty of time to look. He just didn't see it. So not only was Damon Williams throwing interceptions, he was missing big play opportunities in that one in ways that Jaden Mayava didn't miss the week before in ways that, we saw Julian Sayin throwing a bit on the move this past week and keeping his eyes up and making plays. And I'm not expecting him to scramble like DeMond Williams and keep his eyes up and see this, this deep shot. But DeMond Williams left some plays on the field, certainly. And you can't afford to do that against a team that is eventually going to suffocate you and get some negative plays. Like any opportunity you have to get any big chunk, you need to do it. And if you don't, you're probably going to lose, as Ohio State saw last year.
Yeah, for sure. You need to be able to take advantage of those opportunities, because this is not a terrible, flawed Michigan team the way it was last year. This is a team that is getting better. The Michigan team last year was getting worse towards the end of the season. This team is getting better. And so I think one of the things I did want to hit that we have not touched on yet is, you talked about Bryce Underwood. I don't think I talked about the fact that you can tell he's paying attention. You can tell how he's being coached, because we have 4 or 5 times this season talked about he cannot keep taking these hits. He cannot keep taking these hits. He cannot keep taking these hits. You saw him slide a couple times. Got a first down, slid, got 2nd and 20 on I think it was the last drive. 2nd and 20, he gets 18 yards, recognizes it's only 2nd down, slides. Doesn't try and run through a safety or something for that extra 2 yards. There is a big picture here. It feels like he's starting to see it. They trusted him to take a shot downfield right before halftime. I thought that was kind of interesting. It was a time when Michigan very easily could have sat on the lead and just sat on the ball and gone into halftime, and they didn't do it. They put him in a spot where they trusted him to throw it downfield. You can, and he also had a really good play action fake on. There's a pass to Donovan McCulley on the first touchdown drive where he faked out the camera. But I mean, I was watching, and I'm like watching the running back. I'm like, where's the football? And so you can sort of start to see the pieces coming together for Michigan there in a way that they really, this is, like I said, this is what a very talented but very young team should look like this time of year.
Yeah. Michigan 2 of 4 touchdown conversions in the red zone. That needs to get better. Bryce Underwood was 6 of 6 on 3rd down passes for 79 yards. You'll take that. And they're not all conversions, of course, but when you're completing those passes, I mean, DeMond Williams is 4 for 8 for 31 yards. So compare those two, and he's just looking better and better. Now, levels of defense can be one thing or the other, and you look at the defenses that he's got coming up, I think you're going to see one of the most confident quarterbacks in the nation coming into the Ohio State game, and then a defense that he has not seen the likes of. Now, but does that mean he won't be able to handle it? No. Does it mean that he's going to have a great opportunity to throw for 300 yards? No. But he's going to be building and building his confidence over the next few weeks. I am wondering if we still see some ups and downs with him, and not just on the road, but if it is just a road home game, that's still kind of concerning. Like, why can't you play better on the road? But overall, I think I will be looking for some consistency. And at this point, with the opponents that they've got coming, if we don't see it, that's a little bit of a concern, even though, yes, he is still a freshman. He's not going to be a freshman much longer, though.
Mm-hmm. No, that's the old, what's the best thing about a freshman is they're eventually they become a sophomore. And once you get to the point where it's November in the Big Ten and you've been playing all season, you're not a freshman anymore. We've seen this with true freshmen for years. I go back, you want to talk about a true freshman quarterback at Michigan. I'm going to go ahead and skip back past Tate Fortier and talk about Chad Henne instead. But Chad Henne in 2000 was at what, 4? Yeah, 4. Chad Henne at the beginning of the season looked like a true freshman. It's Chad Henne, it's Mike Hart, and oh boy, are they, they're kind of clunking it together. And then by the end of the year, they put together some, that was a Big Ten championship caliber team. They, ran into Ohio State at the end of the year, and Troy Smith wasn't a freshman at the end of the season either. But, that was a pretty good Michigan offense towards the end of that season. That's the kind of learning curve. Very different quarterback here, obviously, than Chad Henne in terms of athleticism and what he can do and arm strength and all that. But he's certainly on his way to, he looks like you would think and you would hope a freshman of that caliber would look at this point in the season, where it's not going to be perfect. There will be another game at some point where you go, oh yeah, he's a freshman. Like, it's going to happen. It's fine. Like, he's a freshman. That's why he's going to look like a freshman sometimes. But you can see this stuff sort of clicking into place. One other thing I did want to mention real quick: Michigan, 45th in SP Plus on offense, 9th in SP Plus on defense, 90th in SP Plus on special teams. Ohio State, their special teams has felt unimpressive all season, and they're 71st. So another missed field goal from Dominic Zavada. And Sharon Moore, he missed a 48-yarder or something like that. Sharon Moore was really like managing that drive to, Dominic Zavada is going to kick a field goal here and we're going to go up 10-7. And then he missed, and he missed like way wide left. Like, I think he missed the net. I think the ball went into the stand. I mean, it was like way wide left. It was not close. You wonder if at some point Zavada has not been terrible this year, but he's not been automatic by any means. He's missed 4 this year so far, something like that. You wonder at some point if that changes Sharon Moore's approach to some of those in bigger games. Like, this was a game where it matters. If you're playing Northwestern and you're up by 17 points, it doesn't really matter. In a bigger game where it's a tie game or it's a one possession game, you wonder if that might change his approach, as the kicker has just sort of continued to be inconsistent and the quarterback feels like he's maybe taking that next step. I wonder if that starts making them look a little more aggressive on, even second and third downs, let alone fourth down decisions.
I'm looking at Chad Henne's game log in 2004. And so Michigan now is 7 games into the season. Bryce Underwood, 7 touchdown passes, 2 interceptions. Through 7 games in 2004 as a true freshman, Chad Henne had 12 touchdown passes and 9 interceptions.
Whew.
But over those final 6 games, Henne finished with 13 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, including 4 touchdowns and no picks in the Rose Bowl loss to Texas. So, he threw for 328 yards against Ohio State, threw for 328 yards against Minnesota, 316 against Indiana. So like he was a legit dude as a true freshman, and you're seeing Bryce Underwood right now, 3 straight 200-yard games. Henne did that in his first 6 games as well, though 2 of those ended up being 300-yard games. Michigan doesn't throw enough to hit that. Like, just like Henne had games as a true freshman of 40 passes, 49 passes, 39 passes, 35 passes, 54 passes, 34 passes. Right now, Bryce Underwood has gone over 28 once, and that was in the season opener against New Mexico, where it was 21 of 31. So, different game than the lightning fast, up-tempo, downfield passing of the 2004 era college football.
Yeah, it is definitely a different game than it was back then. It's, I think Sharon Moore has managed things reasonably well with a young quarterback, where he's there. You can tell they're trying to not put too much on his plate. I think it's been, it's a different offense, obviously, than what Ohio State runs, but you can sort of see the same sort of, releasing the parking brake a little bit on the offense as they're going through and trying to give him a little more, but not too much. I think they've both done a pretty good job. Both programs have done a pretty good job managing young quarterbacks so far this year. And again, very different quarterbacks, very different games. If Bryce Underwood was completing 80 whatever percent of his passes, I think we would be talking about an unbeaten Michigan right now. But that's, That's also the difference between a redshirt freshman and a true freshman. And also we can talk about the quality of the wide receiving cores that they're throwing to and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, this is very much an on track Michigan thing. I saw all the calls for Sharon Moore's head last week, and it's like, what did you expect? This is what a season with. You lost a bunch of guys. You've had a bunch of injuries. You're playing a bunch of young guys. This is what this looks like. This is a Michigan team that is likely, with a true freshman quarterback and a banged up running back, and you probably just lost your left tackle for the season, and you've had a bunch of injuries in the secondary. You're still probably on track to be playing for a spot in the college football playoff on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. That is a good result this year. I think everyone in Michigan has forgotten what Michigan football has been over the last 25 years. 2021 to 2023, that's the outlier. You're not you're not finishing 12-0 at the end of the regular season every year. Those are enormous outliers. Go back, I promise, go back and look. We've been watching Michigan for a long time. This is why I can sort of summon Chad Henne game logs in my brain. This is a good outcome this season for Michigan, given all of the stuff that's going on with the roster and the youth and all that kind of stuff. This is, I think I would maybe encourage a little bit of patience, because also this may not be the year that you want to be in the market for a head coach, because it might be a busy hiring cycle, and there are going to be people who there are going to be plenty of other appealing jobs where you may not be the prettiest girl on the block.
Yeah, it's time for Michigan fans to stop expecting or think they are owed undefeated season. That horse has left the barn. That will then do it, Tom. Do you have anything else? All my notes are done. I will say, Michigan had time of possession of 13-19 in the fourth quarter. Good job there. And also, when you look at this game, I think these last two games for Michigan and how they relate to Ohio State, you're going to look at the Ohio State offense and see more USC than Washington.
Mm-hmm.
So keep that in mind. USC scored 31. Washington scored 7. I think that's something that is certainly notable.
Yeah, I think for sure stylistically you're going to say more Brian Day, more like Lincoln Riley in some ways. I don't know that Ohio State can run the ball the way USC did. If they can run the ball, if Ohio State can run the ball against Michigan the way USC did, I will go ahead and say Ohio State probably wins this year. I'm not expecting them to be able to. I'm not expecting 148 yards on 8 carries or whatever it was, but they can do it, sure. But yeah, this is an Ohio State team that will stress Michigan's defense in different ways than the Washington Huskies did. However, Tony, I'm going to go out on another limb and say Michigan's offense probably better than Wisconsin's. So we'll see how much this weekend's outcomes matter as far as the Saturday after Thanksgiving goes.
Well, and if you use that stress to then be able to run the ball, that's a positive thing. If you don't stress the defense, then it's going to make that running game harder. And Tom, even before we do our Ohio State rewatch, watching that game live, I don't remember the Ohio State game. I don't remember a ton of 13 personnel and just between the 20s. So I wonder if, they're finding some things there. And if that's the case, I think that's bad news for Michigan. Anyway, that will do it. If you're watching on YouTube, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up. We would appreciate it. And of course, you can continue to find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. I will be writing up a Michigan Monday. Not by the time that you may be listening or watching this, but I will try to get that up before the end of Monday. So you can find that at BuckeyeHuddle.com as well. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.